They guilt-tripped me for every dollar. I walked away. Then Mom revealed a hidden truth and Dad's will changed everything. I grew up in a small house in Boise, Idaho, where the word selfish was my childhood's anthem. I'm Emily, 27 now. But back then, I was just a kid trying to please my mom, Linda, and my younger brother, Jake. They had a way of making me feel like everything I had, every dollar, every toy wasn't really mine. It started early. I remember being 9, setting up a lemonade stand in our front yard. I spent hours squeezing lemons, smiling at neighbors, and by the end of the day, I'd made $50. My heart swelled with pride. I ran inside to tell Mom, expecting a hug or at least a smile. Instead, she tilted her head, her lips tight. "Why didn't you share some with Jake?" she asked. He was 8, sprawled on the couch playing video games. Guilt hit me like a punch. I handed Jake $10, my hands shaking. He didn't even look up, just smirked at Mom. "That's it?" she said, her voice sharp. "Stop being selfish, Emily." By dinner, I'd given him $40. I went to bed feeling small, my piggy bank nearly empty. That wasn't a one-time thing. It was every birthday gift I got, every dollar I earned. Mom would say Jake needed it more, that I was the older sister, that sharing was love, but it never felt like love. It felt like I was only good when I gave. Jake would nod along, his eyes glinting, knowing he'd get what he wanted. I'd lie awake, wondering why my efforts were never enough. That word selfish followed me like a shadow, shaping how I saw myself. Even now, at 27, I can hear Mom's voice in my head, telling me to put others first. It's why I worked so hard to build a stable life, to prove I wasn't what they said. But last week, everything changed. I went to Mom's house with a plan to help Jake, to show I'd learned their lessons. I wasn't ready for what happened next. Fast forward to last month, I'm 27, and for the first time, I've got my life together. I live in a cozy apartment in downtown Boise, Idaho, with a view of the foothills. After years of scraping by, working 2 jobs, and fighting my old shopping addiction, I've built something solid. My savings account has $10,000, and I've got a 401k growing steadily. To me, that's a miracle. I used to blow every paycheck on clothes or gadgets, chasing a high that never lasted. But therapy and a brutal budgeting app changed that. I'm proud, you know? I thought Mom and Jake would be too. I imagined them seeing my new life, my tidy apartment, my steady job as an accountant, and finally saying, "Emily, you did it." Instead, I kept hearing that old word, selfish. It stung, but I still wanted to prove them wrong. At work, I met this guy, Alex, who's an Airbnb wizard. He's renovating a fixer-upper in Eagle, just outside Boise, and needs an investor. The deal? Put in $5,000 and you could earn $6,000 a year in passive income, maybe more. It's a no-brainer. I could have jumped on it myself, but that old guilt crept in. I thought of Jake. He's 26 now, still bouncing between jobs, always needing a bailout. I figured this could be his big break. If I gave him this opportunity, Mom would see I'm not the selfish sister she always painted me as. I spent days planning how to pitch it to him. I'd drive to Mom's house in Meridian, sit them down, and lay it all out. "Jake," I'd say, "this could set you up for life." I even practiced my speech in the mirror, my voice steady, my heart racing with hope. I packed a bottle of wine to celebrate, picturing us toasting to his future. It felt like the final piece of a puzzle I'd been solving since I was 9. If I could give Jake this chance, maybe I'd finally shake off that shadow of selfishness. Maybe Mom would look at me with pride instead of disappointment. I grabbed my keys, my stomach fluttering with nerves, and headed to Mom's house. I had no idea I was walking into a trap. I pulled into the driveway of Mom's house in Meridian, my heart pounding. The bottle of wine sat in the passenger seat, a symbol of the celebration I'd imagined. I knocked, and Jake opened the door, his arms already crossed. "Hey, Em," he said, his voice flat. "Mom said you were bringing me a new laptop. Where is it?" I froze, my smile fading. "Laptop?" I stammered. Before I could explain the Airbnb deal, Mom appeared beside him, her eyes narrow. "Emily, don't tell me you showed up empty-handed again." My stomach twisted. I'd come to offer Jake a life-changing opportunity, but they were fixated on gifts I hadn't promised. "I didn't know about any laptop," I said, my voice shaking. Jake rolled his eyes. "Typical. Always about you, huh?" Mom chimed in, her tone sharp. "You've got that fancy job in Boise, a nice car, and you can't even help your brother? Selfish as always." That word hit like a slap. I clutched the wine bottle tighter, my knuckles white. I wanted to scream about the $40 I gave Jake at 9, the birthdays I spent broke to buy him what he wanted. Instead, I tried to explain. "I came to talk about an Airbnb investment. It could make you $6,000 a year, Jake." He snorted. "I need a laptop now, not some pipe dream." Mom stepped closer, her voice low. "If you're too selfish to help, maybe you don't deserve that job or that car." My chest burned. I thought of my friends' families, how they greeted each other with hugs, not demands. Tears stung my eyes. Jake kept going. "Remember when I saved you from those bullies in high school?" I did. He'd yelled at them once and they stopped for a day. He acted like he was my hero, but it never lasted. I looked at their entitled faces, standing in the doorway, not even inviting me in. My sadness turned to rage. "Do you have anything for me?" I asked, my voice steady. Jake laughed. "A gift? For you?" He handed me a crumpled coupon for a free coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. "I'm allergic to caffeine." That was it. I turned, walked back to my car, the wine still in my hand. As I rounded the corner, tears spilled over. I thought of every time I'd given in, every dollar I'd handed over to keep the peace. For the first time, I let myself feel angry, really angry. I tossed the coupon into the trash and drove off, my hands shaking on the wheel. I wasn't going back to that house, not like this. I drove away from Mom's house in Meridian, my heart racing, tears blurring the streetlights. The Dunkin' Donuts coupon lay crumpled in the trash, but that word selfish clung to me like damp clothes. I pulled into a gas station parking lot, my hands still trembling on the wheel. For years, I'd been their ATM. Every month, I shelled out $2,500 to cover Jake's phone, his car insurance, his Netflix account, even mom's rent when her boyfriend came up short. I opened my banking app, my fingers scrolling through transactions. There it was, in black and white, $1,500 a month, sometimes more, draining my savings. Money I could have used for my own future. I thought of the Airbnb deal, the $6,000 a year I could have earned. Instead, I'd been funding their lives, chasing mom's approval. No more. I took a deep breath, my chest tight but resolute. I wasn't going back to that trap. When I got home to my Boise apartment, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Jake's texts started with, "Where'd you go?" Then turned sharp, "You're really gonna leave us hanging?" Mom's voicemails were worse. The first was annoyed, "Emily, this isn't how family acts." The second was a threat, "If you don't help, we'll lose the house." By the third, she was pleading, her voice cracking, "Please, Emily, we need you." That familiar guilt clawed at me, urging me to call back, to fix it. But I pictured their faces in the doorway, arms crossed, not even letting me inside. My anger flared hotter than my guilt. I turned my phone to silent, poured a glass of water, and sat on my couch, staring at the city lights. For the first time, I let myself imagine a life where I wasn't their safety net. The next morning, I woke to 25 missed calls and a string of texts. Mom claimed the landlord was knocking, ready to evict them. Jake sent a single line, "You owe me, Em." Owe him? For what? That one day he played hero in high school? I laughed, bitter and loud, in my quiet apartment. I opened my calculator app, tallying what I'd spent on them over the years. Nearly $90,000 since I started working at 18. My stomach churned. That was a down payment on a house, a master's degree, a life I'd put on hold. I made a decision. I texted them both. "I'm done paying your bills. You're adults. Figure it out." My finger hovered over the send button, my heart pounding. I hit it. The silence that followed felt like freedom, but also like falling. I waited for the guilt to crush me, but it didn't. Instead, I felt lighter. I blocked their numbers for the day, needing space to breathe. By evening, Mom's tone shifted to desperation, leaving a voicemail about utility shutoffs. I didn't call back. I went to bed, my mind racing but clear. I'd spent years trying to prove I wasn't selfish. Now I was choosing me. The morning after I sent that text, my apartment felt too quiet. I'd blocked Mom and Jake's numbers, but the silence didn't bring peace. It brought questions. Was I really selfish? Had I just abandoned my family? I sat at my kitchen table in Boise, staring at my coffee, spiraling. Then my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, a coworker who'd become a friend. She noticed I'd called in sick and insisted on meeting for lunch at a deli near Julia Davis Park. I hesitated but agreed. I needed to get out of my head. Over sandwiches, I spilled everything. The lemonade stand at 9, giving Jake my $40. The high school bullies he saved me from for one day. The way they stood in Mom's doorway, calling me selfish for not buying a laptop. Sarah put down her fork, her eyes wide. "Emily," she said, her voice firm, "that's not normal. That's financial abuse." The words hit like a brick. Abuse? I'd never thought of it that way. I'd always seen it as my duty, my failure to be enough. Sarah leaned forward. "You've been their bank account, not their daughter or sister." My throat tightened. I didn't cry, but I felt like I might. That night, I Googled financial abuse and fell down a rabbit hole. Articles described exactly what I'd lived. Guilt-tripping, entitlement, demands masked as love. I booked an appointment with a therapist in Boise, Dr. Karen Lee, who specialized in family dynamics. In our first session, I told her about the $1,500 I'd been sending Mom and Jake every month, the $90,000 I'd spent over the years. She didn't judge. She just asked, "When did you start feeling like your worth was tied to what you give?" I froze. It was like she'd seen my whole childhood. Over weeks, Dr. Lee helped me unravel the patterns. Mom's accusations, Jake's smirks, they weren't about me. They were about control. I wasn't selfish. I'd been manipulated. With that clarity, I made a move. I called Alex, the Airbnb guy from work. "I'm in," I said. I invested the $5,000, my heart racing with excitement, not guilt. It felt like betting on myself. Dr. Lee encouraged me to join a hiking group in the Boise foothills to find people who valued me for me. On my first hike, I met Lisa and Tom, who laughed at my bad trail jokes and never asked for a dime. For the first time, I felt seen. My phone stayed quiet. No more desperate voicemails from Mom, no more texts from Jake. I'd expected to feel lost without their demands, but instead, I felt free. I started sleeping better, my bank account grew, and the Airbnb project moved forward. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building a life, but part of me wondered if I'd been too harsh. Had I gone too far by cutting them off completely? 3 weeks after I cut off Mom and Jake, a letter slipped under my apartment door in Boise. It was from Jake, scrawled in his messy handwriting. The first page was pure anger, accusing me of abandoning them, but the second softened. He admitted they'd leaned on me too much, asked to meet at a neutral spot, a coffee shop downtown. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to shred the letter and move on, but Dr. Lee's voice echoed in my head. Healing starts with boundaries, not walls. I agreed to meet at Brood Awakening, arriving early to claim a corner table, my coffee steaming as I watched the door. Mom walked in first, her usual neat bun replaced by a messy ponytail. She looked tired, older. Jake followed, wearing a grocery store apron, his shoulders slumped. The conversation started stiff. Mom said they'd had to scramble since I bailed. Jake admitted he'd taken a night job stocking shelves at Albertsons. Mom was babysitting for neighbors to cover rent. They were behind $1,800 facing eviction. I sipped my coffee, letting them talk. Then I laid it out. "I'll help one last time," I said, my voice steady. "I'll pay the $1,800 directly to your landlord, but you both join me for 3 family therapy sessions with Dr. Lee." Mom's face soured. "We don't need a stranger poking into our family," she snapped. Jake nudged her. "Mom, it's 3 sessions. We need the money." I wrote the check on the spot, making it clear this was the last bailout unless it was a real emergency. They agreed, reluctantly. The first session was a mess. Mom Mom spent the hour defending her parenting, saying she was protecting me from becoming like Dad, who she claimed was selfish. Jake sulked, barely speaking. I felt 9 again, handing over my lemonade stand money. Dr. Lee stayed calm, gently calling out Mom's deflections. I left exhausted, wondering if this was a mistake. The second session was better. Jake admitted he'd been entitled, always expecting me to fix things. I didn't think it was a big deal, he mumbled, staring at the floor. Mom still insisted she'd done nothing wrong, but her voice cracked when Dr. Lee asked about my childhood sacrifices. By the third session, something shifted. Dr. Lee had us share one thing we appreciated about each other. I said I admired Jake's new job, his effort. Mom hesitated, then said, "Emily, I'm proud of how responsible you are with money." My jaw dropped. It was the first real compliment I'd heard from her in years. I expected them to ditch therapy after that, but Jake surprised me. He texted, asking to meet for coffee, just us. At Brood Awakening, we made small talk about his job, my Airbnb project. Then he cleared his throat. Dr. Lee made me see I was a jerk growing up, he said, his eyes on his mug. You were always there, and I took advantage. I want to pay you back, bit by bit. He slid an envelope across the table, $150 in cash. It's a start, he said. I was stunned, my coffee nearly spilling. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he insisted. For the first time, I saw my brother, not the kid who smirked when I gave him my money. Things with Mom were trickier. She stopped asking for cash, but her texts stayed stiff, like she was holding back. Still, it was progress. Was I wrong to push them this far, or was this the only way to fix things? Life after that coffee shop meeting felt like a fresh start. I leaned into my new freedom, pouring energy into my Boise life. The Airbnb investment with Alex paid off, bringing in $500 a month to start. I split it between my 401k and a savings account for a house down payment. Therapy with Dr. Lee kept me grounded, helping me see I wasn't selfish, just human. I met Ryan, an elementary school teacher, at a hiking group meetup in the Boise foothills. He was kind, frugal, and didn't flinch when I shared my family's history over coffee at Brood Awakening. Our first date stretched into a sunset walk along the Boise River, talking about dreams, fears, even money. For the first time, I wasn't afraid a partner would drain me like Mom and Jake had. A year later, Ryan proposed on a camping trip in McCall, Idaho, at a lookout over Payette Lake. The ring was simple, perfect. I said yes, my heart full. Wedding planning brought old patterns creeping back. Ryan's parents offered to cover half the costs, but Mom criticized my choices: venue, dress, even the menu. Jake asked to bring 2 extra friends, like it was a party, not my day. I started bending, trying to please them, until Ryan squeezed my hand. This is our wedding, Emily. What do we want? We chose a small ceremony in the Idaho Botanical Garden. 50 guests, no fuss. I braced for Mom's disapproval when I called her, but she surprised me. What should I wear? She asked, then offered to help with flowers. I blinked, stunned. The day before the wedding, Jake pulled me aside at the rehearsal dinner. He handed me an envelope, $300 in cash. I'm still paying you back, he said, his voice low. For all those years. I hugged him, feeling a crack in the wall between us mend. The wedding was chaotic but beautiful. My veil snagged on a rose bush. Ryan's niece spilled juice on her dress. But surrounded by love, it didn't matter. Mom's toast was short but real. I'm proud of the life you've built, Emily, she said. I nearly cried. 2 years later, I got pregnant. Ryan and I planned as a team, budgeting for daycare, adjusting our lives. When our daughter Ava was born, Mom held her in the hospital, tears in her eyes. I watched, feeling hope and fear. I wanted Ava to grow up free from the guilt I'd carried. I was careful with words like selfish, teaching her to share without losing herself. We gave her a small allowance at 3, split into jars: spend, save, share. She loved donating her share to the local animal shelter. Mom questioned it at a family dinner, saying we were overcomplicating things. I explained our approach, calm but firm, Ryan's hand steady under the table. Then Ryan got an offer, head of the art department at a private school in Bend, Oregon. It meant better pay, benefits, but moving 300 miles away. 10 years ago, I'd have said no, chained to Mom and Jake's needs. Now, I weighed it clearly. When I told Mom over lunch, I expected a fight. Instead, she asked about Ben's schools, the cost of living. Her eyes teared up. I'll miss Ava, she said, then suggested video calls and summer visits. I was floored. We moved, bought a modest house with a guest room for family. Mom visited once a year, still opinionated but softer. Jake met Lauren, a no-nonsense bakery owner in Meridian. She hired him as a manager, and he thrived, surprising me. At their engagement party, he showed me a savings account with $5,000, my name as beneficiary. It's what I owe you, he said. I tried to refuse, but he insisted it was for his own growth. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real. Mom still made snarky comments sometimes. Jake forgot birthdays, but the old cycle of exploitation was gone. I'd built a life I loved. Did I do the right thing, cutting them off back then? Looking back, my life in Bend, Oregon feels like a different world from that Boise driveway where I walked away, shaking with anger. I'm 32 now, a mom to Ava and twin boys, Liam and Noah. Ryan and I have built a home filled with laughter, messy art projects, and no trace of the guilt that once defined me. My Airbnb investment grew, pulling in $800 a month now, funding Ava's college savings and our family vacations to the Oregon coast. I'm an accountant part-time, balancing numbers and school pickups, while Ryan thrives as art department head. Our life isn't perfect. Diapers and tantrums keep us grounded, but it's ours, built on choices I made for myself, not others. Mom and Jake have changed, slowly. Mom visits every summer, staying in our guest room. She still nitpicks how I fold laundry, why Ava needs dance lessons, but she's softer now. Last year, she gave Ava a handmade quilt, her fingers trembling as she handed it over. It was the first gift she'd given without strings. Jake's transformation shocked me more. With Lauren's influence, he's steady, managing her bakery with pride. He's paid me back $7,500 of the $90,000 I once spent on him in small envelopes over the years. At Ava's 5th birthday, he showed up without a gift, laid off again. Old me would have slipped him cash. Instead, I suggested he take Ava to Deschutes River for a fishing day. It's now their monthly ritual, Ava beaming as he teaches her to cast a line. He's not perfect, sometimes he cancels last minute, but he's trying, and that's enough. Therapy with Dr. Lee taught me my worth isn't tied to what I give. I used to think love meant sacrifice, that saying no made me the selfish monster Mom claimed. But cutting them off that day in Meridian wasn't betrayal. It was survival. I spent years, $90,000, trying to buy their approval, only to realize it was never mine to earn. Setting boundaries broke the cycle. Mom's still prickly, Jake's still flawed, but our relationship is honest now. I don't flinch when Mom calls, expecting a demand. I don't brace for Jake's next crisis. They've learned to stand on their own, and I've learned to let them. Raising Ava and the boys, I'm careful. I teach them to share, but never at the cost of their own dreams. Ava's allowance jars spend, save, share remind me daily that generosity doesn't mean losing yourself. When Mom questioned it, I didn't shrink. I explained calm and clear that my kids will grow up knowing their value. Ryan backs me, his quiet strength a reminder I'm not alone. I think back to that Boise driveway, the wine bottle in my hand, the coupon in the trash. I was so angry, so hurt, but that moment pushed me to choose me. It led to this life, this family, this peace. Still, I wonder, was I the asshole for cutting them off so harshly? Did I owe them one more chance before I walked away? Or was that the only way to break free? Ada,